the pickle brine preserved him perfectly.
Green Bomb. This is nuts.
It is kind of nuts, but it's also really funny, and you get 2 Seth Rogens for the price of 1, so there are a couple of different reasons why you're going to want to check out An American Pickle once it hits HBO Max. Let's get to those reasons right now. Hey guys, it's Sean O'Connell, the managing director here at CinemaBlend, with a review of Seth Rogen's new film, An American Pickle. Now, in normal society, we probably would have seen this in a movie theater. I love the fact that comedies like this are making their way to streaming services because it gives us new content to talk about. And this one was surprising because when you see the trailer, you might want to sort of dismiss it as something goofy, but there's a reason why you're going to want to check it out.
Wow. Ooh, it's very pungent.
Yeah, that's straight from the devil.
But before we go any further, of course, do me a favor, go down, hit subscribe, turn on your notifications, and that way every time we post a new review here on CinemaBlend's YouTube page, you'll be the first one to hear about it. Okay, let's discuss the elephant in the room and the fact that the American Pickle movie is pretty silly. I mean, it's goofy. It's a goofy concept, and the movie knows it and sort of leans into it. If you don't know anything about the film just yet, Seth Rogen plays 2 different characters. One is Herschel, who we meet back in the old world, who works at a pickle factory smashing rats. That's his job. He has to go around the factory smashing rats, and he gets paid for each rat that he is able to deliver. Well, the rats turn on him in a weird twist of fate and push him into a vat of pickle juice where he is brined for 100 years and wakes up in modern society. There are several jokes in the film that point out the fact that the premise of the movie is dumb. And they're funny. It's like the movie basically just laying its cards on the table and saying, look, this is a ridiculous premise. It would never happen, but we want to get Herschel into the modern world and have him interact with the next generation of his family, and this is how we're going to do it.
That's a very stupid idea, Herschel.
It would almost be like if you were a time travel movie and you came up with a time machine and, glanced over the science of it all, but just said, look, we're going to time travel. This is how it's going to work. And American Pickle finds some really clever and funny ways to take the fact that it is a silly premise and lean into that notion and make it work to its benefit.
In old country, we have saying. I'm sure this has aged well. If man does not throw punch, it is because this man secretly had polio arm.
An American Pickle is absolutely the Seth Rogen show because he plays the 2 main characters in the movie and they couldn't be more different, but that's the point of the story. Herschel is an old school person who's been raised with a strong work ethic, deep religious convictions, and the joke of the movie is bringing him from his environment into contemporary society. There, he meets Ben Greenbaum, who is several generations down the line from where Herschel was. And it's the idea of the 2 of them sort of meeting together to see what they have in common. And Rogen plays both characters through the use of some pretty impressive cutting-edge technology that allows him to play off of himself in multiple scenes.
Is this your father? No, that's David Bowie. Is this your mother? No, that's also David Bowie.
It's really cool, though, to see how good Seth Rogen is in both characters, because he doesn't get enough credit for being a better actor and a stronger comedian than people stop to think about. I mean, yes, of course, he does a lot of broad comedies, whether it be Knocked Up or This Is the End, but Seth Rogen also challenges himself in strong dramatic parts and has done some of his best work in biopics like Steve Jobs. So he's a really talented actor and a gifted actor, and he writes himself 2 very, very strong parts here in American Pickle. It's fun to see Herschel adapt to the completely different New York City that he wakes up to, and it's fun to see Rogen play Ben as somebody who first is really intrigued to have Herschel around and nice to have some sort of connection to a family that he feels like he's lost. But those 2 characters, of course, don't always land on the same page, and so it's interesting to see Rogen play around with the fact that he has to adapt to the way that Herschel behaves and even play off of each other in a way because these guys don't get along. I'm trying to dance around spoilers. It's not like a spoiler-driven plot, that is going to be filled with surprises, but there are some really interesting tweaks and twists and turns in American Pickle that help it elevate it above some of the more standard comedies that you might see on a streaming service like this. And that brings us to our final insight, which is the really cool ways that American Pickle plays around with how they take Herschel's situation and make some interesting commentary about family and work ethic and legacy, and even something like the cancel culture. Again, I don't really want to get too much into where American Pickle goes, because it has some really interesting things up its sleeve. But by setting up the differences between the way that Herschel was raised and the way that Ben has been raised in a modern society, it allows these two characters to really dive into some interesting debates about legacy and how important our family is to us, and where it lands on our scope of things that we're concerned about nowadays. We seem to be a very achievement-driven society where we want to make a name for ourselves and look ahead, project ahead. Someone like Ben, who is working on an app in a technologically driven community, he wants to succeed on that level, but he's dragging his feet because of various emotional reasons. Herschel doesn't understand that. Herschel comes from a time frame where family and religion were the most important things in the world, and he can't necessarily come to terms with why Ben has put these things aside to benefit himself. And so their conversations really make some really insightful jabs at where we were as a society and where we are going as a culture.
You have no wife, no children, no friends, no job. You need help. I'm fine.
It's fun to see Herschel sort of apply a lot of his things about hard work to where Ben is at this point, and how the two men change each other over the course of this journey. And I didn't expect that in a Seth Rogen comedy. But again, sometimes Rogen is able to come around with a film that digs deeper, beyond the sort of punchlines, to get at the heart of what makes some of these things really funny and emotional and connect with us. And there's a lot more of that in An American Pickle than I expected.
We will bond over our pain.
The thing about American Pickle, though, is that the premise and the insights are good for about an hour, and yet it's still about a 90-minute movie, which means that it does get into some pretty goofy interactions in the last 30 minutes as it tries to wind itself down to the emotional landing that it wants to deliver. So I'm going to give American Pickle 3.5 stars out of 5. It starts really strong out of the gate, has some great jokes. You start to bond with the characters, and then they have to sort of figure out where they want to go with it, and I think it loses its way slightly before getting to, I thought, a satisfying conclusion. So it's definitely worth a stream. An American Pickle stars Seth Rogen in two very memorable roles, ones that I really enjoyed seeing him in, and it's going to be on HBO Max starting on August 6th. So if you subscribe to the streaming service, you are definitely going to want to check this one out. While you're here, of course, do me a favor, go down, hit subscribe, turn on your notifications. We are trying to review all of the stuff that's coming to the various streaming services, be it Netflix, HBO, Max, Hulu, all these types of things, and we want to make sure that we have all your entertainment needs covered. So hit subscribe, turn on your notifications, and when we drop a new video here on CinemaBlend's YouTube page, you can come on over and watch it.